All right, beautiful people, let's talk about how to write an effective sales page. Now, I'm Sarah Turner. I'm an expert copywriter. I have been copywriting for over 10 years, and I have taught thousands of people copywriting. Now, learning copywriting is one of the best things you can do, hands down. If you are a copywriter, that's obvious. You want to learn copywriting and get better and always be improving your skill set. But if you are a business owner or entrepreneur, it is still a worthwhile skill to have some knowledge in. And if you are a solo entrepreneur, learning how to write a sales page is one of the best things that you can spend your time doing because it's going to inform pretty much every other part of your marketing and your funnel. So today we're going to dig into how to write an effective sales page. And the particular example I'm going to use is a sales page that I ran for only a few years and generated over $6 million in sales. So you're going to have a really great idea of how to do this for yourself. Oftentimes people are intimidated by writing their sales pages. That's why they hire copywriters in the first place. But if you are an entrepreneur who's going to take a stab at writing your own sales page, I want to reassure you here, because more often than not, you know your ICA or your ideal customer avatar better than anyone else. And if you don't, that is actually the first place you want to start. Most copywriters know that. So if you are going to write an effective sales page, you have got to do your homework first. And what does that mean? That means digging into the people that you are going to write this to and getting a really specific image of who they are in your mind. What are their hopes? What are their dreams? What are their fears? The other thing you have to keep in mind is where this falls in the customer journey. Now, sales pages are typically towards the end. They're sales pages, meaning they are asking for a purchase. So it's usually the very last step. So you want to make sure all along the way leading up to the sales page, you've done your job in making sure that you're inspiring them, you're making them excited, you're informing them, you're showing them how you're different. And then when they get to the sales page, that's where you're going to actually give them everything they need to know to make that final decision and hopefully purchase from you. Now, sales pages are one of the highest paid forms of copy. They typically go for at least $3,000. Now, there are exceptions. Obviously, if it's more like a product page for something smaller, it can be a little bit less. But newbie rates, even for sales pages for products that are in like the $2,000 range, are going to start around $3,000 and go all the way up to $10,000, $20,000, and beyond. And the reason for the pricing of sales pages is because it's based in value. Think about it for a second. If you have somebody write you a sales page that costs you even $5,000 and it goes on to generate $6 million in sales, that's well worth it, isn't it? The other thing that's great about sales pages is you often can run them for a really long time. Like I said, the one we're going to go over, I actually ran for a few years. It wasn't something that I needed to tweak unless there were some subtle changes in the actual offer itself, but it did really, really well. In fact, if you are a copywriter and you want to add sales pages to what you're offering, or you want to increase what you're charging for them, this video is going to be especially helpful for you. I have people in my community who write sales pages only. In fact, we teach what we call a VIP structure within the Write Your Way to Freedom course, where you only need a few sales page clients each month, usually one a week, and you charge $3,000 minimum for those. So if you do that quick math, you'll realize that's $12,000 a month writing 4 pieces of copy. So sales pages do a lot of heavy lifting. They are super high value. And when they're done well, they make your clients super, super happy. But again, if you are DIYing your copy and you want to learn how to write an effective sales page, this is perfect for you. I do encourage people to write and try to write their own sales pages if they can, because again, taking the time to learn copywriting is one of the best things that you can do and one of the best uses of your time as an entrepreneur, hands down. Okay, let's dig in. So first things first, a sales page should really only be selling one thing, or at a minimum, a variation of that thing. Because if you have too many choices, you are going to create what's called the omnivore's dilemma, or giving the reader too many options, which will cause them not to make a decision or be less likely to make a decision. So sales pages should be hyper-focused on one thing. And that sales page should be dedicated to connecting with the reader's pain points and desires. And then your offer is the solution to whatever it is they are looking for, right? So some questions I want you to ask yourself before you dig in are, what beliefs do your ideal customer hold? Do you need to tackle some of those beliefs? Do you need to address them? Do you need to show how you are uniquely positioned to help them? I also want you to ask yourself, what questions are your ideal customers asking? And how can you make sure that you answer them? The other question I want you to ask yourself is, what has your customer done before to try to solve this problem that didn't work? Because you definitely want to address that. The other thing I want you to be super clear on is who this person is that makes them the perfect customer for you. Because when you try to sell to everyone, you usually end up selling to no one. So the more specific you can be, the better. In fact, there's a pretty classic copywriting hack that I love to give people, especially those who are not copywriters. And that is to imagine somebody in your real life that this product or service would be perfect for, to write their name at the very top and to actually write your sales page to that one person. What's that going to do for you? That's going to make sure that you're super specific. It's going to help you use imagery because you're going to be able to talk about particular situations and stories that you know will resonate with them. And it's going to prevent you from kind of getting too broad and too general, which is usually the number one mistake that I see in sales pages. Now, here is the main focus of our sales page. I want you to think about, what is the transformation that the person who is going to purchase your product or service going to experience after they have done so and gone through whatever it is, a program, you name it. What is the transformation that they are going to experience? And more importantly, how are they going to feel afterward? This is one of the main mistakes I see people make when they're writing sales pages, is they do not connect to the emotions of the person enough. It's super important to remember that we are emotional creatures who make emotional decisions, and then we back it up with reason. So if you are too busy focusing on the features and the nitty gritty and the numbers and the logic and the reason, you're not going to connect with your reader. What is far more effective is to paint a picture or tell a story where there is an emotional benefit or an emotional payoff. Anytime I see a bulleted list on a sales page of features that have been turned into benefits, because that is kind of the basic first step, I always ask people to take it one layer deeper. For example, maybe you have a program that's going to help people feel more financially secure. You could say, and you're going to feel more financially secure. But that doesn't really go very deep. What I'd like to see you say instead is something along the lines of, you're never going to have to check your bank account again when you're eating out, or you're going to be able to afford organic groceries, or you're going to finally be able to take that trip with your family. Whatever it is that is unique to your particular product or service, hone in, go a layer deeper. So make no mistake, transformation is the cornerstone of every successful sales page. Now, the other thing I want to make sure that you do is, as you're moving through your sales page, there are likely going to be objections that will probably even pop into your mind. I can't tell you the number of times I'm writing a sales page, and because it's something that I'm so passionate about, because I only write about things I believe in, and I get to a place where I'm like, okay, this is starting to sound too good to be true. And what do? I say something like, does this sound too good to be true? I get it because da-da-da-da-da. So make sure, as you're observing objections pop into your own mind, or you're thinking, this is an objection that I often hear, address it head on. Towards the end of the sales page, I like to paint a really vivid picture. And this picture is highlighting the difference between being stuck and making a change. So the change that they're going to make is obviously purchasing whatever it is the sales page is selling and achieving the transformation that you have been painting the picture of all along the way. But you have to juxtapose that with where they are right now and how stuck they feel. So maybe you're teaching a dog training program. The transformation might be that on the other side of this training program, they're going to be able to confidently take their dog out in public spaces. And then you have to juxtapose it with the picture of them being stuck where they are right now, where they're really nervous because their dog is aggressive and they feel like they can't take them outside of the house. That is a really scary and uncomfortable feeling, especially because they probably love their dog is a part of their family, and they don't want to have to live in fear that their dog will do something that will hurt themselves or hurt their family, right? This needs to be kind of one of the last parts of your sales page because it's the thing that shows them, wow, I really don't want to be stuck here anymore. So while I am not a big fan of templates because what I have seen it do is it creates one, copycats, and two, people who actually don't know how to write copy, what I do love to do is give you a simple structure because we've kind of gone through loosely everything that should be included in a sales page. So instead of thinking that there is a right way or a wrong way to build a sales page, just think about different components that you want to be sure that you include. And I think it's really helpful to just think of it as like the top, the middle, and the bottom, or breaking the sales page into thirds. So the first part of the sales page is really to connect with the reader, and this is where storytelling is going to set you apart. Finding an effective story to connect with your reader is going to help you so much. And this is why I encourage entrepreneurs to write their own sales pages. Because more often than not, the product or service that they have built their business around helps a younger version of themselves. So then they get to tell that story. And when you can tell a founder's story, it does a couple of things. One, it allows them to get to know the person that they're dealing with and to connect with them further. And two, it also allows them to see how they are uniquely positioned to help them with the particular problem that they're facing. But if that's not the story behind your product or service, that's totally fine. Just know that you really want to lead with storytelling. And you also want to try and include not only a beautiful story that paints the picture of the transformation, but also including a video. Videos go a long way these days, and they don't really have to do much other than to touch on some of the basics and to really connect with that reader and give them a chance to connect with somebody in the business. I cannot emphasize this enough. The difference between a mediocre sales page and a really kick-ass sales page is storytelling. It's one of the reasons I'm not too concerned about AI. The middle of the sales page will walk us through more of the offer and really tie it back to the transformation that they're going to experience. And the bottom of the sales page is where we kind of build trust by addressing objections. People are often resistant initially to addressing objections, but quite frankly, it builds trust because when you can say, I already know what you're thinking, and here's why that is not something to worry about, they're going to feel so much more seen and heard, which is a really important part of this whole process. I really love to use FAQ sections at this point because I'll actually just call out the exact questions that I often am asked that are usually objections, and I just address them head on. Okay, let's use a real life sales page that's earned over $6 million to kind of walk through and give all the things I'm talking about some context. So the first thing that a reader is going to come across is your headline, but I actually usually write that last. You want to make sure that it's eye-catching, and sometimes it's great to ask a relevant question that will really get them thinking. But you want to be sure that you're leading with that transformation. So in this example, I say, earn reliable income, set your own hours, and work from anywhere in the world, even if you don't have a portfolio, previous experience, or a writing background. Join Write Your Way to Freedom and build a thriving freelance community in as little as 3 months. So you'll notice not only am I painting a picture of the freedom that they will be able to experience, but I'm also handling objections right away, that they don't need experience, they don't need a portfolio, and that we're going to help them get all of those things. Something else that I want to point out here is that the main thing your copy is trying to do all along the way is to get your reader to just keep reading. So you want to make sure that whatever it is you're creating leads them to the next section, to the next section, to the next section. I also want to give you permission to test things. I have tested so many things over the year and am often surprised at what works. For example, I had a moment where I just plopped the price right at the top of my sales page and it increased conversions by about 5%. I would have never guessed that. I would think that you wanted to actually explain to people what it is that they are getting before showing them the price. Because that's another thing. It's not that we're not being transparent about the price. It's that we need them to understand what it is they're getting before we actually show them the price, because people will often just see it, freak out, and shut down. But if they're connected to the transformation that this thing gives them, they're so much more likely to see that value. So this next section, I really like to use storytelling, as we mentioned before, and I like to hold a mirror up to the reader. So here I say, what would your life look like if you could earn a consistently high income while being your own boss? You would finally have the chance to decide what success looks like for you. You'd be able to visit your family for important events and holidays, set your own schedule so that you could always pick up your kids from school, enjoy financial flexibility to take on more work when you want and less work when you want, and to feel excited to get up in the morning. Sounds like a dream, doesn't it? It's not, my friend, because when you're a copywriter, that kind of freedom is your daily life. Now I really paint a picture. Imagine how amazing it would feel to fit your work around your life rather than always fitting your life around your work. Really, take a deep breath and imagine what your life would be like. Maybe you'd be working a 20-hour work week. Maybe you'd finally ditch the dreadful work commute or travel to Greece or Italy, or work with clients or brands who align with your deepest values, or curl up on the couch with your kids and dogs. Never have to be underpaid, and on and on. I also want to pause and give you another tip. So remember the tip I gave you where you can write to somebody in your real life? In this sales page, I am writing to myself 5 years in the past. I'm writing to the Sarah who hadn't yet discovered copywriting, and it made writing the sales page a heck of a lot easier. Again, this is why it's so important to do your research and to get super clear on who your ICA is, to use the lingo and ideas that they actually have in any of your sales copy. So this is still part of the first section of the sales page, but the next thing that I like to do is to tackle any old school or limiting beliefs that they might have that would be holding them back from making the right decision to purchase this product or service if it's going to actually help them. Again, I'm a big believer that you're trying to sell to the right people. So here I say, were you led to believe that in order to earn good money, you have to get a PhD, clock 10 years of experience, and work a traditional 9 to 5 until you're eligible to retire? Yeah, me too. But the old school way of thinking keeps us feeling stuck, exhausted, and wanting more out of life. And the worst part, it's not true. Because it is totally possible to earn a reliable income, set your own hours, and work from anywhere in the world without having to trade your sanity or happiness for a paycheck. I know because I've created this life for myself, and thousands of my students have too. You'll also notice I'm infusing some credibility and authority in there by referring not just to myself, but to my students. Because it's one thing for me to have done this for myself, but it's a completely different thing to have helped 6,000 people through this process. And then the next section, which is the About You section, is going to really be about the differentiation. What sets your client or your business apart from everything else that is out there? And even though this is an About You section, it's not really about you or the business. It's actually making sure that you are finding a way to intentionally connect with the reader to show that you are uniquely positioned to be the person to help them with this transformation with your product or service. Again, taking time to identify stories here are going to go a long way. So in this section, I say, hey you, I'm Sarah Turner, avid world traveler. I'm going to kind of skim it. But today I have a career that allows me to work from anywhere where there's Wi-Fi, earn a consistent income, and see my friends and family whenever I choose. But then I back up and explain that that's not always how life was. I was once on the other side of that transformation where they are now. I started out working in a miserable job. You knew the drill, always waiting in line to get my 2 weeks vacation. One day I was so sick of waiting for life to happen to me that I quit my job and started my own writing business. It wasn't easy. In fact, sometimes it was really, really hard. This is handling the objection of sounds too good to be true, right? Because at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is hard. And I would never want to paint a picture that you don't have to do work in order to see success. I'm going to skip a little bit, but once I locked in the process that worked, I went from making $1,000 a month as a part-time writer to making between $16,000 and $25,000 each month from copywriting alone. And then I go into how I'm not special, how I don't have industry secrets, but how I have tried so many different ways, pieces of advice, and saw that a lot of the advice out there was not great. That's actually why I created Write Your Way to Freedom. And this will be true for your clients or your business as well. I am willing to bet that the product or service came into existence because it's solving something that the rest of the stuff that's out there isn't. And this is what we call your differentiation. So you want to make sure that you lean into it. For me, it's that I'm a freelancer and I've always been a freelancer. Most people teaching copywriting online worked in-house and don't know what it's like to be a freelancer. Or they have very, very little experience and didn't have to work from the ground up like I have. That is important because most of my students are working from the ground up. Most freelancers are working from the ground up. So I make sure to highlight that. The next part of your sales page is to introduce the offer. Here's where you just show them what it is and you tell them a little bit about it. Again, making sure that you're not focused on the features and all the nitty-gritty details and all the logic and everything, because you don't want to switch into that part of the brain. You actually want to keep them focused on the transformation, because at the end of the day, most people don't really give a shit about what is in the actual product or service. They just want to know if it's going to help them achieve that desired transformation. This is, again, one of the biggest mistakes that I have seen copywriters make and people make when they write sales pages, is they lie out the entire curriculum in great detail, and that becomes the primary focus of their sales page, but people really don't care. They just want to know that it's going to deliver on the promise, and as long as you have something that does deliver on the promise, you don't need to get into the nitty-gritty. Just show them the basics, show them what's included, and tie everything back to the emotional payoff that they are going to get when they make this purchase. Now, the next part is no sales page is complete without social proof, and I love to see it all along the way. One of the best things you can do is if you have social proof that actually ties into what you're talking about in the sales page, that is even better. It's the best. Sometimes you won't have that, especially if a product or service is new and you're just starting out. So you can just work with what you have, but you do want social proof. So even if that means you need to put the product or service into the hands of people for testimonials, please be sure to do that. Another great thing to use social proof for is handling common objections. The two classic objections that you should absolutely always cover are time and money. That is always people's concern. I don't have time, I don't have money. But the thing is we often have the time and we have the money if we see the value. And your sales page is supposed to show them the value. So when you have testimonials that handle these, for example, maybe you have somebody who had absolutely no time. They're working 2 jobs, they're raising kids, they're homeschooling, all the things, but they still made it work. You want to make sure that you highlight that and you want to pair it with when you talk about the time objection. Same thing with money. I didn't have any money, but I bought this on a credit card and here's why it was worth it. Or I set aside money so that I was able to save up for it, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. Make sure that these are sprinkled throughout. So everything we just talked about was the middle of the sales page. Now we're going to move into the end of the sales page. So this is where you really want to paint a clear picture of who this is for, who this is not for, and answer any objections. So I always like to outline like who is this a good fit for and list it. And also, who is this not a good fit for? And list that as well. And then we move into what I had mentioned before, that frequently asked questions section, which is a great place to handle objections. So common objections for this particular sales page are, do I need a college degree or an education in writing? What if I don't like writing in school? Life is super busy right now. Should I wait for a better time? I'm worried about putting myself out there. How do I overcome that? Do you have to be creative to be a good copywriter? Are there any other startup costs? Then you go in and you click that plus sign and all of those objections are handled. Now remember how I like to present the 2 options? I do that at the very end. You deserve a life that lights you up, and Write Your Way to Freedom is your proven path there. I also really, really believe in ethical and conscious copywriting, so I'm never trying to sell to just everyone. And I include, if this isn't tugging at your intuition, that's okay. You can confidently click out of here and get back to your beautiful day. But if you're meeting me all the way down here, chances are you already know you want a life of freedom, meaning you have 2 options. Option 1, you can try and start freelancing on your own, but you run the risk of going at it alone and ending up where you started a year from now. Option 2, you can 100% commit to your future by following my proven roadmap. Now more than ever, opportunities to earn an amazing living online as an entrepreneur are at an all-time high. The only thing standing between you and your biggest dreams are the limiting beliefs we've all been taught, and on and on and on. You get the idea. Okay, so I've talked about some of the biggest mistakes along the way, but I want to recap some of the biggest mistakes because I have looked at a lot of sales pages. Mistake number 1 is starting the writing process with the headline. I want to encourage you to just go ahead and save that for last, because at that point in time, you're going to know everything that you have included in your sales page and how to encapsulate it so that it is enticing and encourages the reader to continue reading. Mistake number 2 is not conducting any market research before you're starting writing. Now, I have seen so many people be intimidated by the word market research as if there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. There isn't. You just have to get super, super clear on your ICA and make sure that you are speaking directly to them. Mistake number 3, using vague language to talk about the problem. You have got to paint pictures. Anytime I go through my sales page, I go line by line and I say, can I get more specific and can I tap into emotions better? Mistake number 4, not focusing on the transformation at all. It is so painful to see a sales page when that happens. They're just listing features, talking about the program, talking about themselves and their business, their mission, and it is just not connecting to the reader at all. Mistake number 5, skipping testimonials or social proof. You just can't have an effective sales page without social proof. So be sure you're taking time to collect it and adding it in. And mistake number 6, forgetting to experiment. One of the best things you can do when writing a sales page is to have an open mind and to experiment with many different options. If your conversion rates are not great, don't scrap the whole thing. Just start by testing a few different headlines. Remember the story I told you where I just plopped the price at the top? I just did it on a whim, and I was shocked at how it significantly increased conversion rates. I suspect it's because at that point, they had gone through a masterclass of mine, they had gone through many different emails of mine, and by the time they got to that page, they were really wondering, how much is this thing? Just tell me. So I gave it to them, and they were happy to see that I was very open and straightforward about the price, especially in today's world where some people are not. So I hope this helps. Go ahead and leave me comments if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. And please don't forget to subscribe. You're going to be getting a lot more videos like this from me. And if you hit that thumbs up button, I know you want to see more content like this. Thanks, guys.